Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247, joined as always by my esteemed colleague and proud Tampa Catholic graduate, my travel companion to Columbus, Ohio, the one and only Eric C. Henry of Horns247.com. E. Henry, how you doing?
Chip Brown, I am doing well, my friend. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a minute here at the top of the show to just run through a couple of things. One, if I could be a company man, go and get yourself a 24/7 Sports hoodie. The weather is changing a little bit. And Chip, these things are comfortable. Like, I'm not just saying this because, the paycheck. It keeps you warm. And I don't know how much of a hoodie guy you are, Chip, but there's a difference between a hoodie that you just throw on versus one you feel comfortable in, right? These things are soft inside. So go out and get you one of those. A couple more housekeeping notes. One, Chip and I are back, as you can tell, at the home studio in Austin. So no one will be yelling at us to leave Ohio Stadium. Which, Chip, I went back and asked myself, has anyone ever done that? And to let the folks know at home, right, how this works, we go to the post game, we come back up, we try to find a room at DKR. It's a coach's box, right? We know no coaches are coming back for anything, but on the road, you try to find a room that's empty and you take the show. At AT&T, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Chip, is the only time this happened to us, or happened to me at least. SEC title game, someone politely came in. I think you'd gone to the bathroom because we'd finished taping, and someone politely came in as I was packing and said, "Hey, are you guys still working here? You mind if we get in here?" No big deal. We'll leave. Not, hey, y'all can't be in here. So there's that. We're back to home studio. And last thing, Chip, a minor housekeeping note on my part that I said I'd clean up from a couple episodes ago. In talking about Grayson Littleton, the Tampa native from Wiregrass Ranch, Chip asked me about Wiregrass and said, was it, a type of grass? And I told him it's a suburb and whatnot. And I guess I inartfully said that Wiregrass Ranch kind of sprang up in population akin to a South Lake. I use South Lake as an example. I had a fine resident of South Lake reach out to me and give me some background on the history of South Lake. For any residents of South Lake that I may have offended by those comments, I apologize.
Well, thank you, Eric. You did not offend me on that. But yes, it is nice to be back in the comfy confines. The fine people at Ohio State, very territorial over their rooms and their press box. Apologies. We were just trying to lay it out for the folks what went down. And Eric, now that we've had some time and we've talked to Steve Sarkisian and the players as the team prepares to play at home at 11 a.m. on Saturday against San Jose State. That's a tough wake-up call for the folks from San Jose State, making that trip from Cali. It'll be 7 a.m. No, 9 a.m. their time.
Yeah.
9 a.m. their time for kickoff. So we'll see how the Spartans handle that. Kenny Nuiatamolo, who we interviewed on the Flagship Podcast during the summer. Make sure you go to the Horns247 YouTube channel and check out that interview. But Eric, all eyes, attention, focus, conversation has been on Arch Manning, who played well at times against Ohio State, but missed some throws that he would love to have back. We talked to Arch on Monday. He was the first player to come into the media gathering that we have with Sarkisian and the players on Mondays. And what did you think of Arch? What did you think of his demeanor and what he was saying?
I think it's typical Arch, Chip. I mean, I've talked about it before on the show. What is amazing to me is his ability to handle all of this. Chip, I'd said it last 2 years. I'm talking about Quinn Ewers and referencing I thought Quinn is a little shy, which there's nothing wrong with being shy, right? I don't think anyone is trained, unless you're like us who are trained orators, And even we struggle. No one's trained to be around 25, 30 people just hovering over you. And I guess the setup this year, it's even a little more confined, right? For someone to just get behind that table and have all these people in front of you. I'm always amazed by how composed he is. But, I think Arch, Chip, and I'm curious if you read it any differently. I think he's mastered the art of not saying very much in specificity to his game. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. He doesn't owe us an answer, right? A lot of it is, I just got to play better. Chip, you did a great job over the weekend. You wrote a piece talking about Arch Manning shouldering the blame. I think, Chip, this is just, I've always felt this way. The best quarterbacks, the best head coaches, when you win, it's everybody else. When you lose, it's me. And, again, I'm not trying to psychoanalyze Arch, but I think or psychoanalyze his team. But I think that's especially crucial when you're talking about someone who is as widely talked about, widely popular, Chip. I mean, Anthony Hill, at times, he may be the best defensive player in college football. And if there were any other, Chip, if this were last year, right, his scrum on Monday would probably resemble Arch's. And there's times where Ant was there on Monday and there's 3 people around, right? So I think those things matter, that Arch is always willing to accept the blame and shoulder the blame when it's on him. I think he'll play well in the locker room. I think it plays well, for the broader space. But in terms of actual substance, I mean, you're not going to get much. And again, that's fine. Arch really mastered the art of saying nothing. And I think Steve Sarkisian would rather have it that way.
Yeah, I mean, he continued to take the blame on Monday. Said, I got to play better. It was kind of his pat answer across the board. But he did say, I'm determined, and I think this will motivate me to play better. So we'll get to that. And the bounce back, our prediction for Arch's bounce back. But I'm with you, Eric. We were talking a little bit before the show, and I said, look at what he did last year. He goes out there against UTSA, lights it up. He's playing free. He's the backup, 4 touchdowns, passing, 1 running, 67-yard touchdown run. Then the next week, gets a little greedy against ULM, throws a couple of passes he shouldn't. They get picked off. And then the next week, in his second start against Mississippi State, 26 of 31, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He's a guy who has shown he'll learn from his mistakes. And so I think Texas fans should expect a much better version of Arch on Saturday against the San Jose State Spartans at 11 a.m. Don't you?
Yeah, no. Go. I'm sorry, Chip. You pass it back to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You and I did talk about that in the pre-show. I think that's the key point, right? For someone with such a small sample size out there on the field, he's shown a history of bouncing back from subpar performances, right? Which is key for any quarterback, but especially a young guy. You talked about last year him bouncing back from the subpar performance against Louisiana Monroe, even last week, right? While sure, there still were some passes that, were in the dirt, at guys' knees, behind people. The mechanic stuff, I genuinely believe Steve Sarkisian and company will fix, right? But, and you let me know if you see it this way, and I don't know how long you want to stay on Arch. I'm almost less worried about the mechanics because we've seen him showcase good mechanics, right? We're not talking about, forgive me for throwing, someone on the bus, probably an easy target right now, and Anthony Richardson, right? We're not talking about someone who seemingly has never shown it and you're just hoping you can get it. I don't worry about that with Arch. I worry about his ability to just put that previous play behind him, previous game behind him, and then focus on what's ahead of him, right? Because not in a negative way, and I think I referenced this. I was on the Chuck Oliver show in Atlanta. I appreciate them having me on, but not in a negative way. I just think, the guy's a perfectionist, Chip, right? He wants to get it right. And sometimes with guys like that, it can be hard to move on because you're so laser focused on why didn't I get that last one right? So that almost matters to me more, is the fact that he showed the ability to, in the second half, not let that first half snowball. He and Steve Sarkisian made adjustments as opposed to the mechanics. I think the mechanics because you've seen it, Chip, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I liked a lot of the things that they did in the Ohio State game. They rolled the pocket. They rolled him to the right. They kind of rolled him to the left. And oddly enough, it was the rolls to the right that he struggled on, that he skipped the ball to DeAndre Moore on the first play. The game was wide open, 14 yards downfield. Great call by Steve Sarkisian. And then, rolling right, he misses the 2 passes to Ryan Wingo, both of which could have led to a big play. And, when he's, rolling to his left, not rolling to his left, but they kind of moved him to his left.
Right.
He fires that strike to Jack Endries that I don't know how many guys can throw. A lot of, pro analysts were saying that window was NFL small, and he nailed it. And so there were flashes of Arch Manning. The touchdown pass to Parker Livingstone was an amazing throw from the far hash, and he can do it. He just there were times where he didn't trust what he was looking at. There were times where he rushed, and there was no pressure. There was no reason for him to throw those drag routes with an open stance instead of setting his feet toward the target and throwing. Instead, he's, kind of throwing this sidearm with an open stance that is understandable if you've got a middle linebacker draped all over you and you're just trying to get it out before you get hit, but that wasn't the case. So I think there was a lot to like about what Arch Manning did, but there's no question that the throws he missed were critical and costly. And Eric, we didn't probably dive into this as much in the post game, but
we didn't have an opportunity to dive into much, Chip.
Yeah, because y'all can't be in here. But the 4th and goal from the 1, that was a tush push. It just didn't materialize the way they wanted it to. CJ came running in behind Arch and tried to push him in. So they need to work on that, because I think there's some hope for that. And also maybe if he went to his left instead of his right, it was there. But your thoughts?
Yeah. How do I want to do this? I think I'll work in reverse to mention that the quarterback sneaks immediately, and I'll come back to what you mentioned about Arch Manning and kind of the arm angles he's throwing from. Listen, I typically, I'm not huge on critiquing play calls because I think things move so fast down there. Unless it's just like, what are you doing? I'm not big on critiquing play calls. However, I think Steve Sarkisian opened the door for criticism when he talked about maybe on the 4th and 1 going heavy on heavy. And for those who didn't catch Steve Sarkisian's explanation, he said, hey, we're moving fast. He wanted to try to see if he could catch Ohio State without having the opportunity to sub in their heavy package. But he said in hindsight, maybe he should have gone in with his heavy package and just go heavy on heavy in that 4th down. Chip, Texas missed a quarterback sneak. What, a quarter before? Darn near in the same fashion.
Well,
go ahead.
They made it, but barely. 4th and 1 earlier in the game. And then
excuse me. That was a make. I'm sorry. That was a make.
On 4th and 2, they ran CJ and they didn't make it.
I apologize. Yes, that was a make, but barely. This is what I meant to say. The push up front, Chip, looked very similar from the first quarterback sneak attempt to the one that was missed, right?
Not good.
So I think that's something there you can look back at, to your point. Chip, I want to come back to the arm angles thing super quickly. Again, we don't have to, spend the whole show on it. Chip, you've watched football for 35, 40 plus years. That arm angles thing feels so overrated to me. And again, I am no quarterback expert, but I'll say this. Yes, when you have a mic in your face, you have to find a way to get the ball out when someone's directly in front of you, right? Versus an edge rusher, so on and so forth. But also, when you're 6'4", 6'5", out there in cleats, I mean, for the most part, you're bigger than everybody else. And Chip, you let me know if you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I've never been a fan of guys, you got to have a bit of a sidearm delivery here, or he can throw it this way. I'm from Florida. I grew up watching, Dan Marino throw the football, right? For, at least later Dan Marino, not early Dan Marino. The guy was a surgeon throwing one way, right, Chip? I mean, am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Because I don't get I think a lot of quarterbacks are trying to put that in their game, right? This is not an arch thing. This is a quarterback thing. I can throw a sidearm. I can throw it this way. Just throw the ball. If you're 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", you're going to get it off. Am I being harsh or unfair?
No, I think that's right. I mean, quarterback coaches, Steve Sarkisian even said it. You want to set your front foot towards where you're throwing the football. That's going to set up your arm to throw it exactly where you want to throw it. When you don't have your feet set and you're in an open stance where you're kind of, like I am facing you right now, instead of having my shoulders turned, you're kind of, you don't know where that ball is going to go, or at least it seemed like Arch didn't. He lost his touch. He lost his, accuracy when he didn't set his feet toward the target and deliver the ball. When he did, it was amazing at times. So I think that's an easy fix, Eric. I'm with you. I think that's an easy fix. I think, hey, especially after the consequences of that game, Arch Manning is going to be locked in. I'll be surprised if we see any open stance sidearm throws this week against San Jose State. That's just, again, based on what we've seen from Arch Manning in terms of correcting his mistakes, learning from his mistakes, and moving forward. But I thought he handled everything, taking the blame, saying, we got to play better. It starts with me, over and over again. I thought he handled that well. I'm sure, his teammates all sounded completely confident in him. Michael Taff saying, I'm not worried about Arch. That guy's a dog. So now Michael Taff's his best friend on the team. So, but what did you think of the players around Arch Manning on offense?
You're asking from Ohio State or on Monday?
In the game, like the receivers, the tight end, the running backs.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you're referencing maybe guys who spoke on Monday. No. We talked about this a little bit on the post-game show. Didn't get a chance to dive too deep into it. Ryan Wingo, and I thought Steve Sarkisian referenced it on Monday, right? His consistency, his growth as a receiver, that's going to be key. Chip, I don't care who you are, right? Listen, Ryan Wingo's a team guy. Let's state that first and foremost. If you heard him in fall camp saying he's not worried about what Jeremiah Smith is doing or Ryan Williams is doing, he's just worried about Texas Longhorns and Ryan Wingo, right? So it's not like this is out of petulance. But I can understand, as a young guy, first game out there, Ohio State, nationally televised, and you get a ball at your knees or a ball behind you, or you're wide open and the ball doesn't come your way, right? Those things add up and they can get frustrating, right? You want to see Ryan keep the consistency, not let those things get to him, because Steve Sarkisian referenced it, as I said, on Monday, saying that, hey, he felt that, he was a little bit inconsistent in his route running and some of the things that he can do, things that are in his, things that are in his control, right? Because whether the ball is here or there, you can't control that. What you do, that's well within your purview, right? So there's that. Also, Chip, super quick, Steve Sarkisian referenced the amount of plays that Ryan Wingo played, which was 67. That's tied a career high. Maybe Wingo's a guy who just is most effective, right, at 45, 50 plays. So there is that. I'll run through some of the other guys super quick. I thought Jack Endries was good. Again, you talked about that wheel route. Very solid. He showed off athleticism. And I'll give a super quick shout out to you. I had a chance to talk with his father, Robert Endries. He gave me a little bit of background into how he ended up as a walk-on at Cal. One of the things I think you see at Chip, he's not Spencer Shannon size, right? He's not Jordan Washington size. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Chip. I mean, he's probably not as athletic as JT Sanders, but he's a different build. He's quicker. He can get the wide receiver, the tight end screen, and do some things. So I think that was key to see in the offense. And I mentioned this to you on Saturday. I thought CJ Baxter, he looked, Chip, even off of the injury, to be pretty close to the guy that we saw year one. Right now, the question is that his ceiling? And I don't want to start, getting too off base because it's only one game into the 2025 season. But for coming off of the knee injury he was coming off of, he looked pretty darn similar to the guy he was in 2023 that was healthy. So those things that was encouraging in my mind.
Yeah, and CJ Baxter said on Monday, it was a relief, to be out there running between the tackles, catching all 5 of his targets, that he could play at a high level. And I think that was very promising. Quintravian Wisner played well as well. Ended up as the leading rusher in the game. And Arch Manning ran around. I think you and I both predicted that. But a couple other, notes. Trevor Gooseby played with a cast on his left hand, played well. What a tough guy. And Connor Stroh and Neto Umeozulu rotated at left guard, and both looked like they fared pretty well. The pass protection was pretty good, Eric, and they did a good job of picking up the blitz. Matt Patricia played with a lot of 5-man lines, and NFL level disguised coverage. And so it was a challenge for Arch Manning in this offense. And I thought they, protected Arch pretty well, ran the ball better in the second half than they did in the first half, but ended up with almost 170 yards rushing. And after last year, when they averaged 2 yards a carry and ran for about 70 yards, that was a significant improvement. So it looks like the offense has things to build on, and we'll get into this and here in just a second. We're about to see a bunch of players who did not play on Saturday get reps. So we'll probably see guys like Christian Clark at running back, and Dalen McCutcheon and Ryan Niblett, maybe Khalil Lockett at receiver as we go forward here. Defensively, Eric, any other thoughts on the offense before we move to the defense?
No, I'll just quickly add tight end. I see Jordan Washington and Nick Townsend a little bit more as well on Saturday as well. But go ahead, Chip.
Yeah, how about Nick Townsend being in on the first play of the game? And we saw that there would be different 12 personnel packages, and we did see a bunch of different 12 personnel packages, Nick Townsend, Jordan Washington. Defensively, I think there was some, a lot of good, and obviously they didn't force the turnover. So their nation's leading streak of 24 straight games with a forced turnover comes to an end. But if not for a couple of really poorly timed penalties, that defense might have given up only 7 points in the game. The face mask on Colin Simmons, the hands to the face on Leonga Lafau when it looked like they were going to get a safety, those were killers. But I think we got to start with Grayson Littleton, Eric, because he was fantastic. They tested him. They saw the freshman in there. They went after him with Jeremiah Smith. Grayson Littleton broke up the pass. They went right back after him on the next play with Brandon Innes on third down, and he breaks up that pass. Unfortunately, that was the play where Colin Simmons tore the Ohio State kid's helmet off, and so the drive continued. But Grayson Littleton, come on down. Starting nickel as a freshman. Your thoughts?
No, Chip. I think the biggest takeaway for me after Saturday's game is Grayson Littleton's going to play a lot of football for the Longhorns over the next 3 years. That's my big takeaway. The moment was not too big for him. And listen, going to make a thinly, maybe not so thinly veiled reference to Ryan Clark, who talked about, Arch Manning, the level of football he played against in high school, right? Well, I'm not equipped to speak about Louisiana high school football, but I'm equipped to speak about Tampa area high school football. Wiregrass Ranch High School, again, it's Chip in Florida now, you kind of go up to 8A, right? I believe Wiregrass is 5A or 6A. So it's on the higher level. It's a bigger school. You do face a lot of the bigger programs. But, I mean, there are probably, Chip, maybe a dozen programs in the state of Florida alone, in the state of Florida overall, that could really compare to that type of talent, that type of atmosphere. Not very many in Tampa, maybe one or two. I'm only referencing that to say the fact that the kid can step right into the Horseshoe, 110, 107,000 people. Was it 107,524 is the exact number. And play against Jeremiah Smith, right? Chip, that's, to me, that's like an internal thing, right? Some guys are just made up differently. And I hate using cliche things like that because, you don't have any real way, a substantive way of proving that, but some guys just have it. I think at this point, we know Grayson Littleton has it, Chip. I don't know if you see it any differently, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, and he is wired different. I mean, I did a big takeout on him in August, talked to his brother, Drake Damon, who played at Sonoma State and is 8 years older than Grayson. So when Grayson's coming up, Drake was able to teach him how to watch film, how to do the math about where they were on the field and the ability to know, okay, in this part of the field, this is what they run. So you can eliminate all these plays that you've seen and all these plays that you've seen. They're only going to run these certain plays. And Grayson Littleton picked up on that quickly. That's a difficult thing to get kids to understand. To watch film, see all the different formations and plays that they run, and then know they're only going to run these types of plays in this part of the field. So if they're lined up here or there, I can eliminate these and these and focus in right here. And Grayson Littleton, from the beginning, has been able to grasp that and make plays. So that's going to be fun to watch for sure. I don't know if you were distracted there, if you got something you were looking up there. But
yeah, I'm with you, Chip. I'm here.
Yeah. So I think, you look in the secondary, you've got all kinds of guys who have that connection. Now, let's be honest, the Andrew Makuba, Jade Barron, Michael Taft connection was pretty special. Lots to live up to in that secondary, but let's see how this thing progresses because, they got beat deep on one play, and it was Jalen Gilbo. He had blanket coverage on Carnell Tate, and Carnell Tate makes a Tyrone pro throw type of catch right behind the back of Jalen Gilbo. So, I think you look at that, you say, okay, secondary looks pretty good. Malik Muhammad held up well. I think there's things to be encouraged about in terms of the secondary. And then outside of the illegal hands to the face from Leonga Lafau, he played a great game.
Chip, just for the audience here, I'm using a webcam and it's on top of my my monitor, so I'm just trying to locate the camera there. The nerve of Chip Brown, if you catch him on another outlet, might be half eating a granola bar while someone's talking. So I digress. I love
just checking in. I didn't want to bore you.
No, Chip, to your point about the secondary, and I'm going to spin it into a point that I think is maybe a little bit mundane, but I think it's really important for this Texas football team. Like you said, secondary played well. Chip, this is probably going to be, when I take a look at it, the best overall set of receivers. And Jeremiah Smith is all world, right? Like, if we're just saying Jeremiah Smith, then of course Ohio State's got the best receivers. But overall, as a set, Carnell Tate, Max Clear, the best overall set of pass catchers that they will play, and they held up well, right? How much of that was Julian Sain? How much of that was the game plan? Who knows? maybe those two teams meet again down the road, and maybe, you know, Julian's saying sling it a little bit more, right? But for what we saw on Saturday, still got to go out and cover those guys. Can't leave them wide open, right? They played really well. A point that we talked about in the pre-show that I wanted to make here, Chip, turnovers, right? You referenced it. Texas's 24-game streak of leading wow, I'm struggling with talking today. Texas had a 24-game streak of forcing a turnover that led the nation. That was snapped on Saturday. I think it is very crucial for Texas to force turnovers, especially with a young quarterback, especially with an inexperienced offense, to give your offense more opportunities, right? You may have 7-8 drives in a game that happen organically. If you can give them a 9th or a 10th, that could be the drive that pops, Chip. We saw it in the second half, right? They put together a couple drives, right? Like, all right, look like they're moving the ball here. There's that aspect of it. Short fields. Every drive, and I'm a big believer in this, every drive can't be 80 yards, can't be 75 yards. It's too hard to go down the field and score, even against, you know, I don't want to disrespect a group of 5 team, but let's just say opponents that aren't Ohio State. It's too hard. Defenses are too good. There's too many variables on each play that can happen to ask to go out and do it 11, 12, 13 times and produce points, right? So you need to come with some short fields there. The culprit that Steve Sarkisian pointed to, and when we spoke with Anthony Hill and some of the guys on Monday, they all referenced this as well, is having that second guy get to the ball and punch it out, Chip, right? And listen, this is now my 3rd season covering Texas. I heard that a lot year one, right? We got to have guys swarm to the football. That first guy's got to, well, listen, tackling was an issue year one. It was just get them to the ground. That's the first part of the equation, right? You can't punch out if the first guy doesn't have the guy wrapped up. But I heard that a ton, right? Chip, that's something that I don't know, again, if you see it this way, but I do. I don't think that's something you can necessarily teach. I think if you have more veteran guys, a Michael Taft, an Anthony Hill, a Jalen Gilbo, that can be done. Because in my experience, I think as a young player, as an inexperienced player, you're just so focused on the first academic aspect, which is tackling, right? And maybe you don't have the confidence to come in and punch it out. Or maybe you don't have the confidence to take an angle and do a little peanut punch, right? But as you have veteran guys who understand angles, understand tackling, understand pursuits, then you can do those things. And I think the amount of turnovers that the defense produced last year was a byproduct of A, the experience, and B, experience playing in Pete Kukowski's system. I asked Jahdae Barron and, you know, Jalen Ford from years before, all those guys, about how much freer they felt to go out there and create turnovers because they had the experience in the system, not thinking as much, right? Again, I'm nitpicking. As Chip said, it was a great defensive performance, but I'm sure I can speak for Chip here when I say this. The expectations that we have for this defense, these standards are so high that it's not just holding teams to 14 points. It's sacks, creating turnovers, all of those things, right? Splash play, scoring points, quite frankly, right? So that's where I land with the defense.
Yeah, only 2 missed tackles. 2 in the Ohio State game. That's fantastic. With all those playmakers you just talked about, to have only 2 missed tackles, you'll take that all day. So, yeah, excellent defensive performance. And even on the goal line play, their 4th and goal from the 1, of course, Ohio State made 4th and goal from the 1, touchdown. Texas didn't. That was the lead of my my post-game story. But Anthony Hill shot the gap on that play, knew exactly where it was going. He just got there too fast. He came kind of screaming through the hole before C.J. Donaldson had really gotten into the hole. And so, you know, Texas's defense wasn't like they were caught off guard there. They just were too fast. Anthony Hill was too fast getting into that hole. All right, Eric, special teams. Well, the big boys up front, Cole Brevard, A+. Guy was immovable. I mean, I think everybody's seen the replays where he's got 3 guys on him and he's not moving. I mean, he's not going backwards. So, Cole Brevard, fantastic. Alex January, fantastic. Alex January is going to be a star, Eric. This is a true sophomore, and he's, big 97, son of former Longhorn football player Mike January. And Alex, he's got the goods. And now I think even in these next few games, we'll even see, the Justice Terry's, Josiah Sharma, they really like him.
How can Josiah Sharma, with that size, how can you not, right?
Yeah. I mean, another guy who's, next to impossible to move. I think Sharma's 90. I could be wrong. Let me see if I can find my little
I know I usually have my roster laying somewhere. Here's my roster right here. Let's see who gets to it quicker. Go for it, Chip. Josiah Sharma is 90.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So keep an eye out for those fellas, but kudos up front. Looks like Texas has at least 5 guys. They played 5 defensive tackles, and of course, Ohio State only averaged 2.3 yards per carry. And okay, so special teams, Eric.
Yes, sir.
Jack Bomeister, 26-year-old punter. Johnny Nansen calls him Kangaroo Jack. Tate Haver, the backup long snapper, calls him Unk. Arch Manning makes fun of him for being so old. But that dude was money. Dropping punts, getting them down at the 2, 3, 8, and 20-yard line of Ohio State. That guy can flip the field. I know it's one game, but my God, he did all that while averaging 46 yards per punt. Kudos to Jack Bomeister. We did not get to see Mason Shipley attempt a field goal, but he warmed up well in Ohio Stadium. Your thoughts? Oh, if there's a negative, it was Ryan Niblett not fielding that last punt. I don't know. I guess he was, according to people who were watching on TV, said he was complaining about the sun, but that was a huge mistake. He let that ball bounce. It rolled 20 yards, went out at the 15. He could have caught it, caught it at the 35. That was tough, Eric.
Well, Chip, real quick before I give you my thoughts on Jack Bomeister and the special teams, we got there bright and early, and that sun was real. So I'll tell you this much. If that sun was anything down the field during the game like it was for us in the press box, I'll give Ryan Niblett a little bit of a pass. Those are things, Chip, that you can work on in practice. But, when it happens live and all of a sudden that sun's there and you're like, oh, man, last thing I want is to have this thing bounce off me. It's tough. It's tough. You got to clean it up because, as you mentioned, big field position swing, but it's tough. So I'll give Ryan Niblett a pass there. I'm going to work in reverse and mention something you didn't mention, Chip, and because I actually want to get your thoughts on it before I talk about Jack Bomeister and Mason Shipley. The choice of Quintravian Wisner and CJ Baxter as returners, Chip. Your thoughts?
I'd like to see Ryan Niblett back there. I mean, Ryan Niblett is one of the fastest guys on the team. He's played running back. He's played receiver. He's, I want to see him catch a football. I mean, I think he's got good hands. I want to see Ryan Niblett back there. And I know I just, said what a mistake he made on the punt return. But if it was the sun okay. But let's see what he's got, because if he's got those jets, then that's how you take it to the house. Quintravian Wisner and CJ Baxter aren't going to outrun anybody. They had Matthew Golden back there last year. Matthew Golden ran what? 4.29 at the combine? Mm-hmm. If Ryan Niblett ran a 10.300 in high school, let's get those jets back there. Eric, what do you think?
And Chip, I'll give you one more thing I got to bounce off you, because again, seeing not just your starting running back, but your backup running back, or I guess I should flip that, not just your backup running back, but your starting running back out there. That reminded me of an era of college football long gone, Chip, right? You don't see that anymore. Not in college, high school, maybe. Your thoughts, does that give you anything, sort of concern?
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, I love Quintravian Wisner and CJ Baxter. They're going to get you tough yards between the tackles. Those guys fight. They take hits. They bounce. They like Leroy Horde. He's going to get you 3 yards every time,
That's a throwback reference.
If you want 5, he's only going to get you 3, okay? But on kick returns, don't you want a guy with jets? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
So go ahead, Chip. I'm sorry.
I mean, I was a little confused.
I can pick it up from there. Yeah, I asked CJ the question about returning post game, returning kicks, because as I said, like, that's just an era long gone to have, your backup running back and your starting running back out there, right? But in terms of CJ, we didn't get a chance to ask Trey. At least I didn't get a chance to ask Trey during his scrum on Monday. CJ said he went to Jeff Banks and said he wanted to help, right? He wanted to be on special teams. He wants to contribute. And that if that's the way he can, he was willing to do it. And he did return, he said a little bit, not a ton, in high school, right? So to your point, it is super interesting. Just I am probably a little more optimistic on the speed of CJ Baxter and Quintrevon Wiseman than you are. Now, they are no Matthew Golden, right? Who is. Very few people on this earth are. But the days of seeing a 220-pound back there returning kicks, it caught me by surprise. I'll say that. Now, to get back to the original question, come on, you can't say enough about Jack Bouwmeester, right? His performance, incredible. The way he dropped those things right there inside the 5-yard line, that's huge. I made this point to Chip in the pre-show, and I've talked about it a little bit as I've been taping. Giving your young quarterback, your inexperienced quarterback and offense more opportunities. That is another part of complementary football. I'm going to write about that this week because Steve Sarkisian talked about it extensively on Monday, right? Texas should have had a safety. Chip talked about it, right? Get the hands to the face. Unfortunately, those things happen, right? It's football. You're moving pieces, but that should have been a complementary football example right there. Bouwmeester pins him deep. You get the safety. All of a sudden, all right, you get the ball back. Guess what?
7-2, you're getting the ball back?
7-2. And what did I say? An additional opportunity for your offense to try and figure it out. And most times on that free kick, you're usually getting the ball at least around the 35, 40-yard line. Short field. These things all snowball, come together. So excellent job by Jack Bouwmeester, as you mentioned, the 26-year-old. Hell of a humor. Those Aussies tend to be a little humorous, right? When I can't remember who asked him, but he said, what do you think about before you kick the ball? And he said, I can't necessarily say it, but it goes something like kick the out of the football.
Yeah, kick the
right?
out of the football.
So yeah, Bouwmeester, a very funny guy. Would have liked to have seen Mason Shipley, not necessarily that you want to see Texas settle for field goals, but that atmosphere, right? If there's one way, Chip, to build confidence, not going down at Ohio Stadium in front of that crowd, I feel like that could have been a nice start to Mason Shipley's Texas career with 3 home games coming up, right? So, of course, now he will get opportunities to kick at home against group of 5 opponents. And then we'll see what happens before you head to Florida. In terms of, and this guy always gets lost in the shuffle, but I will mention him every time there is not an issue. Lance St. Louis, veteran long snapper, no issues there, right? Chip, for the most part, especially when referencing Mason Shipley and field goals, that snap is going to be there for Bouwmeester to put it down. That part of the operation will be solid. So I'll reference those guys in talking about special teams.
Yeah, and Bouwmeester is the holder.
Yeah.
And, of course, the starting kicker is Mason Shipley, who is right-footed. The backup or the long field goal kicker is Will Stone. He's left-footed, which adds its own set of circumstances. Bouwmeester said, yeah, it's a little tough because you got to make sure, that your dominant eye is comfortable. I don't even know what that means, but I can imagine you're catching it this way on one and this way on the other. You're asking a lot of Jack Bouwmeester, but we'll see how that plays out in games.
Super quick, Chip. I mean, Mason Shipley probably, and obviously I understand why you reference Will Stone being the long field goal kicker, because obviously that was, a situation prior. Mason Shipley's probably that guy, right? So, I mean, he nailed one from 60 at Texas State, and I saw the one he hit from 54 against FIU. So, I mean, he's probably, you would think, right? I'm genuinely asking.
Yeah, you would think. when last we saw Texas's field goal kicking situation,
Right.
it was a mess. I thought we would see Bert Auburn come out on the field for the Miami Hurricanes at the end of that game with Notre Dame, and it was some other kid.
It's the kid from FAU who was bit 4 for 11 from his career. So, I mean, Chip, real quick, I'm not here to bash Bert, but if you want to make a substantive point in relation to Texas, I guess that provides proof to why you went and got Mason Shipley, right?
Right. Yeah. Bert Auburn got beat out at Miami. All right, Eric. Texas is going to play San Jose State, the San Jose State Spartans. What can you tell us about the Spartans and their spread and shred offense?
Yeah, Chip, they call it the spread and shred. Excuse me, not spread and shed, spread and shred. It's just another variation of the run and shoot, right? Which, if you think about, Coach Ken and his background, right, and Craig Stutzman, their offensive coordinator, Hawaii, right? So, of course, the Godfather, June Jones, right? Because that is June Jones is the one, or is that go back to Hal? No, Hal Mummy's the air raid, so June Jones would be the run and shoot. So,
right,
yeah. June Jones was Atlanta's offensive coordinator, I believe, when I was just a youth, a young lad under Jerry Glanville when I was like 1 or 2. So give you the background of that offense there. They're going to look to move fast, right? And to Chip, was kind of jokingly making the point that it's going to be early for San Jose State. Probably a little early for Texas. Those DBs better be ready to go because they're going to sling it, right? They're going to sling it early. Walker Eget is their quarterback. Last week, he went 24 of 43, passing for 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But as you saw, or as I'm assuming you've seen, if you've looked at San Jose State's week 1 result, they lost to Central Michigan 16-14. So 43 attempts did not result in a ton of points. Eget is a guy who I was a little bit unsure of. Group of 5 quarterbacks, Chip, it's always, I think, especially at that level, it's like, let's just find a guy who can play our system, not someone who's going to make the system. And I kind of thought Walker Eget was that guy last year. When you play with a Nick Nash, who, for those who don't know, was FBS Triple Crown winner last year, led the nation in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Feels like, you just go in that direction. That guy can make the offense. But no, Walker Eget, from people I've talked to, big arm, bigger guy, is going to look to throw it. I would say, Chip, I think in a way, this is going to resemble the Colorado State game last year and what they're going to try to do. They lost darn near all of their receiving production from last year. Keep an eye on a couple guys, one being, I'm forgetting his name right now, Danny Scudero. Thank you. Danny Scudero from Sac State. He's the Sac State transfer. Led the team in receptions, receiving yards last week, and it was 9 receptions for $130 and a touchdown. Also got Leland Smith, who, if you listened, as Chip referenced at the top of the show, when we spoke with Coach Ken on the podcast, I'll have a link in the Know Your Longhorn Foe. That actually should be out right about now. Should publish that at 9 a.m. Central Time. I'll have a link to go back and listen to that episode. You'll hear Coach Ken talk about Leland Smith they got from Purdue as well. Those are going to be the main targets. But yeah, that is San Jose State. They're going to look to move fast. I think the big thing you got to keep an eye on is they replaced a fair amount of talent, not just a receiver, but a defense, offensive line as well. So Texas defensive backs, Michael Taft. Chip, how many times has Michael Taft come in to talk to us and the dude's had no voice, right? You better be communicating out there because they're going to look to move fast on Saturday.
Yeah, San Jose State was a 14.5-point favorite at home against Central Michigan, and they lose it 16-14. The San Jose State defense gave up 247 yards rushing on 50 carries against Central Michigan. Central Michigan only attempted 13 passes in that game. So they want to run it, and that should be, well, we'll see. Central Michigan wanted to run it.
Right. That's, yeah.
So Texas may want to run it this week against San Jose State, seeing how they were giving up rushing yards like Halloween candy. All right, Eric, you ready for some take it or leave it?
It's America's favorite game, Chip. I'm always ready.
Well, let's get to it. All right. Did we have a couple to keep score from last week?
We absolutely do. Take it or leave it, number one. Of course, I erased the third one, so I got to go back and check that. But take it or leave it, number one was Jeremiah Smith. Over under 3 catches. Chip Brown was a loser on that one. He took it. I left it. By my stat sheet, Chip, make sure I'm correct on that because Jeremiah Smith had what, 6 receptions? Yeah, 6 for 43. So I got that one. Take or leave it, number 2 was Arch Manning. Over under 30 rushing yards. And we did go sack adjusted. It did not matter. We both took it. We both hit on that one, Chip, because he got 37 yards. And here's the third one I was looking for. The defenses of Texas and Ohio State keep the total, the total points. Man, I need more coffee this early in the morning. Under 47.5, take it or leave it. Both Chip Brown and I took that. So we both were winners. I am up 3-2 on Chip Brown. And sir, I am leading off to you. So take it or leave it, number 1. Arch Manning throws at least 9 interceptions this year. Take it or leave it, Chip.
Ooh, that's kind of right on the number, isn't it? You know what? I'm gonna give. Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna say he throws 8 interceptions this year. So I'm gonna leave this.
It is tough. The reason I'm gonna take it, Chip, is because I still think Texas is going to play at least 15, 16 games this year. And I still think Arch Manning is going to push the ball downfield. And I still think Arch Manning may have a mistake or 2, right? Heck, could have had 2, right? Sonny Styles gets his hand. It's a little bit under it on Saturday. He's got 2, right? You can't account for tips, things of that nature. So I am going to take this one, Chip.
Okay. Take it or leave it, number 2. Eric, the Texas defense will lead the nation in fewest points allowed. Take it or leave it.
Strong take. My faith in Texas defense is not wavered. There's no reason for my faith to waver in Texas's defense. I still believe they will be as stout as I felt they would be entering the season. I am taking it, Chip.
All right, I'm going to take that as well. So we are on to take it or leave it, number 3.
You still think Arch Manning breaks Colt McCoy's single-season touchdown record of 34. Take it or leave it, Chip.
I'm going to take it. I think Arch bounces back and breaks Colt McCoy's single-season touchdown record of 34. Eric, what say you?
This is still the one I struggle with because if you take a look at these 3 games, right? Again, I don't want to disrespect San Jose State, UTEP, or Sam Houston. I can go through this weekly, all right, or at least over the next 3 weeks. I think Scotty Wall is going to do a great job at UTEP. They're going to be better than they were last year. I don't think they're there yet. San Jose State lost a lot last year, and Sam Houston was a 9-10 win team. They lost a whole lot, including their head coach, right? These are games, Chip, where if you're going to, and I hate to put it this way, break records, right? You got to get 5-6 touchdowns. You got to get at least 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns in a game. Steve Sarkisian, that's just not his MO, right? And I'm not even talking about running up the score. How many times we talk about in this episode? He's going to get guys playing time. You probably got a QB2 and Matt Caldwell. You want to get some time, right? I'm going to take it because I took it before, because Texas is going to play so many games. But if he doesn't, it's going to be because of these 3 games, Chip, that Steve Sarkisian just says, yeah, Archer day is done. Let's get some other guys work.
Yeah, and he's probably going to play like at least 3 quarters because he needs the reps. He needs to get comfortable.
That's a good point.
But I think he should average 3 touchdown passes per game in these next 3 games, right?
Yeah, because I mean, if he gets 9 over these next 3 games, that puts him at 10 with, in theory, at least 9 more games left? You should. But then that doesn't account for a game that maybe you get out there and you don't throw a touchdown pass. You only throw one, right? So there you go. There you have it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I mean, a couple other things, in the SEC, LSU looked really good against Clemson. Alabama did not look good against Florida State. Any thoughts about those games, Eric?
Kalen DeBoer is going to get fired if they have 3 losses before November. I mean, there's that. I'll tell you, I mean,
60 million. His buyout is 60 million.
Yeah, okay. They'll find it. They'll find it. That's honest to God, my thought there. I mean, Chip, it's hard to say that Alabama should be better because, I mean, obviously you switch coaching staffs. There's going to be an adjustment period. And again, it wasn't like they were bad last year. It's just Alabama, right? And to lose to a Florida State team that was 2-10 the year prior, and the way you did, that's
with your former head coach running it down their throats. Gus Malzahn, the run game wizard.
Chip, I'm a professional, objective, reporter. Please stop trying to turn me into something I'm not, because I'm not dealing with that this early in the morning. My former head coach and Gus Malzahn, I could go on a rant on that.
Eric is a proud Central Florida graduate. Gus Malzahn was the head coach. He left that head coaching job to become the offensive coordinator at Florida State.
Chip is trying to rile me up this early in the morning. I think what's most embarrassing for Alabama, Chip, remember Thomas Castellanos. He went off and had comments, and he backed it up. That's what's most embarrassing.
He said at ACC Media Days, Nick Saban ain't coming to save Alabama.
So there is that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's week 1.
Backed it up.
And overall, to answer your question, week 1, it's so hard to get a read on teams, in my opinion. So I don't read, no pun intended, too much into it. If we come SEC play, right, and then you have another situation for LSU, and they beat someone, strong, or Alabama takes another tough loss, then you have something. Because I wouldn't read into Texas after week 1 the same way I would these programs.
All right, fair enough. I thought LSU looked really good. I was like, okay, there's Harold Perkins playing star and blazing in there and tormenting Cade Klubnik from Westlake High School. But yeah, good start for Brian Kelly. He was back to being smuggalicious, because what Dabo Sweeney said, he gave them both practically failing, both teams failing grades, and Brian Kelly
one team scored a 65, one team scored a 58 was the quote.
Yeah, I'm like, Brian Kelly's like, he's either a terrible grader, but you don't need to be talking about my team. We dominated, Brian Kelly said. We dominated them in the second half. All right, there you go, kids. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Flagship Podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed here at Horns247 on the YouTube channel so that you don't miss an episode. And feel free to, leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. But
and Chip, leave a review of Chip's new glasses as well.
Yeah, what do you think? I lost my glasses in Columbus, so I had to get some new glasses. Feel free to leave a review of the glasses. Until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com, where we have incredible opportunities for you to become an annual member. So take advantage, because if you become an annual member, you get all kinds of perks, including VIP access to all the sites on the preeminent 24/7 Sports Network. Go buy a 24/7 Sports sweatshirt. Can you tell the people where to buy that sweatshirt, Eric?
You can get it at a Paramount Shop and 247.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Till next time. For Eric Henry, I'm Chip Brown. We'll see you over at horns247.com. Stay safe and keep the faith.